Tonight, toxic parliament, sexual harassment, bullying and intimidation, a staggering report card on the behaviour in Macquarie Street.
John Barilaro, a no-show at an inquiry. Now a senior Labor politician is accused of bad behaviour toward young women.
A free-for-all on the trains until the end of the month, the latest strike action twist.
McDonald's being sued over $250 million of alleged wage theft.
Grocery prices to drop by Christmas, a bold prediction from a major supermarket chain.
And the NRL's tribute to Paul Green at every ground and every game.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Angela Cox and Michael Usher.
Good evening. An investigation into the state parliament workplace has revealed an alarming culture of bullying, intimidation, sexual harassment, even rape.
More than a third of staff interviewed say they've been personally harmed, with some MPs' offices described as hotspots for appalling behaviour.
It's the damning report card on a toxic workplace, the New South Wales Parliament.
I've read the report. It is sobering, confronting and completely unacceptable.
Neither side or any side in politics comes to this issue with clean hands. We all need to do better.
In a place rife with bad behaviour, among the findings, bullying is a significant issue. Sexual harassment occurs at unacceptable rates to both women and men, with some officers described as well-known hotspots. Former Sex Discrimination Commissioner Elizabeth Broderick surveyed MPs, parliamentary and electorate office staff. Her team held over 100 interviews, 7 group sessions, took 58 written submissions. More than a third said they'd been bullied or sexually harassed, especially young women. For those responsible,
my very strong advice to you is that you do not belong in the Parliament of New South Wales.
5 people had experienced sexual assault or attempted sexual assault. 10% had witnessed it or heard of it occurring.
Sadly, the contents of this Broderick report are not surprising, but that doesn't mean that they're not shocking.
Throughout the report, first-hand comments on bullying MPs. They enjoy bringing grown men to tears. Offices with staff revolving doors. People leave traumatised. There is no justice and no fairness. On harassment, it's a completely predatory environment. Inappropriate comments, including by MPs, geez, your boobs look good in that, and fear of speaking out. As soon as you're offside, you are fired with no notice and no recourse.
There was no real avenue for people to make complaints about bullying, harassment or coercion in the workplace.
The report recommends an independent body to receive and investigate complaints, a review of employment conditions in the Parliament and weeding out the worst officers for poor behaviour. The Premier says for safe workplaces, politicians should be leading from the front.
Change needs to happen. Today, change will happen.
Chris Meyer, 7 News.
Well, just hours on from the release of that shock report, yet another state MP is in the gun tonight, accused of bullying staff. Those allegations coming as John Barilaro. The whole saga took another astonishing turn, with the former Deputy Premier failing to show up for a second round of hearings into his New York job offer.
As committee members took their seats, the witness chair sat empty. John Barilaro, a last-minute scratching from his own inquiry.
I spoke to John Barilaro this morning, but he is not up to attending the inquiry today.
Friend and fellow National Bronnie Taylor saying weeks of scrutiny have taken their toll.
I say to you, and I say to anyone out there, how would that make you feel? And how do you think you would manage with that?
Blaming Labor for putting off his appearance for 3 weeks.
He said from the beginning that he was happy to appear.
But committee members say any delay was the fault of former colleagues.
If the government cooperated more with us, we might be able to get this over and done with more quickly.
The former deputy leader was due to face a drilling over what his girlfriend, who worked for Investment New South Wales, knew about his lucrative US trade job. Also set to be interrogated on his work for Coronation Property and whether he had any influence over a decision to lift a stop work order on a Marylands building site. After sacked Minister Eleni Patinos faced a grilling over her involvement this week.
What we saw in the Parliament this week was absolutely disgraceful.
The ICAC has been alerted to her role, refusing to say whether it's also contacted Barilaro. As scandals continue to rock the government, Labor was dragged into the political turmoil today with bullying allegations levelled at the opposition's front bench. Shadow Police Minister Walt Secord accused of the repeated bullying and intimidation of junior female staff. Secord saying, "I do not have the same recollections," but acknowledging he can be too blunt and too direct, adding, "I am aware of my shortcomings and I will continue to receive assistance."
Obviously, we take all instances or reports of harassment or bullying seriously.
Amelia Brace, 7 News.
Sydney commuters are set to enjoy weeks of free travel right across the rail network starting from tomorrow. Live to Evan Batten at Martin Place train station. Evan, how has this come about?
Angela, today there's been no negotiations between the union and the government, so no breakthrough. So the next round of industrial action winds on. And as you say, from tomorrow, 24 days of effectively free travel for commuters will begin. The gates behind me and right across the network will be left wide open and won't close again. Now, that means that people won't have to tap on and off, although Transport for New South Wales is keen to point out that the card readers will still be working, and by law people do have to tap on and tap off. If they're caught without a valid Opal card on the trains, they do risk a fine, although we should also point out that transit officers have started their month of industrial action not writing any fines at all, so it's very difficult to see how anyone would actually cop a penalty for not having a valid Opal card in the next 24 days. At least this will hurt the government coffers, and we understand that the unions will go back to the negotiating table next Monday to decide what action will be ramping up next week, in particular on Wednesday. Angela.
OK, Evan Batten, thank you.
A man is under police guard tonight after a crash and a dramatic arrest in Waterloo, right outside the headquarters of the Police Rescue Squad. The driver smashing into 2 cars and 2 power poles before putting up a violent struggle with officers who'd raced outside to help him.
Struggling on the ground in Waterloo, a drunk man tries to shake off police.
He's just, swearing non-stop.
Authorities believe he'd left a domestic dispute this morning when he came to Botany Road to blow off steam, allegedly ploughing into a car before hitting a taxi and taking off again.
Black SUV slammed into the taxi. It was pretty hectic. Like, all the boys were just running to the yard to see what was going on. Very loud, yeah, a big bang. The guy in the SUV came up, tried to fight the cops, and then the cops just tackled him to the ground, and yeah, it was just chaos.
Luckily, no one was seriously injured, but tensions were high. The taxi and its driver pushed through the Kenneth's Hire gate.
He was pretty shaken up. As soon as he got out, he was just kind of yelling and running around, trying to run up towards the guy that just hit him.
Police seizing a number of items from his car, including a box of ice creams. The driver of the Holden will face a string of very serious charges after allegedly accelerating in the direction of police before crashing in to this power pole.
I woke up to a massive crash, essentially, like a massive crunch sound. The pole completely just hanging lopsided towards my building.
The driver remains in hospital under police guard. No charges have yet been laid. Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
A 15-year-old boy has been rushed to hospital with serious pelvic injuries after being hit by a car on Canterbury Road at Bankstown this afternoon. The car, a grey sedan, failed to stop and police are now looking for the driver. The boy was given first aid at the scene and taken to hospital in a serious but stable condition.
Australia has acquired a powerful new piece of technology, a cyber weapon for the army, which will be critical in defending our nation.
Simulations from the so-called top secret supercomputer will help us develop weapons and machinery as China ramps up its presence in the region.
Adelaide's Edinburgh Defence Precinct, now home to one of the world's most powerful supercomputers.
This is a transformational technology.
Technology so secret we weren't allowed to film it. The government providing these images instead, saying the computer will be used for designing and testing future warfare systems, including nuclear-powered submarines.
Science and technology creates strategic surprise
and avoids strategic surprise.
That now more important than ever as we enter a new era of competition and conflict.
China is seeking to shape the world around it in a way that we've not seen before.
Experts say Beijing's missile tests and live fire drills in the Taiwan Strait after US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taipei is proof of that.
The lesson of the last week or two is that it doesn't take much of a pretext at all for China to be very, very irate.
Taiwan launching its own military exercises in response.
We will firmly defend our sovereignty and national security.
With foreign interference and espionage now more prevalent in Australia than ever before, the Chinese government is also viewed as the biggest threat to Australia's national security.
These are attempts to use the so-called grey zone, which falls short of war.
But, he says, go hand in hand with Beijing's trade bans on Australian exports. Rob Scott, 7 News.
Paid internships could be made available for teaching students in their final year of study. Education ministers from around the country met for roundtable discussions in Canberra today to address crippling nationwide staff shortages in the sector.
We all want to pay teachers better. You know, we've all got limited budgets to do that.
The federal government, in partnership with schools, will look at creating a national action plan to better support teachers.
The biggest fast food company in the world is tonight at the centre of one of the most significant wage theft claims Australia's ever seen. McDonald's, a company synonymous with young workers and giant profits, is now facing federal court action set to include hundreds of thousands of employees seeking up to $250 million.
It's claimed while McDonald's was advertising, its staff were working without a break they were entitled to.
We'll be alleging that 10-minute breaks were not given to those people over a period of about 6 years.
A paid 10-minute break for working 4 hours or more.
We're a family of over 106,000 employees.
Brooke used to be part of that family.
In the dead middle of summer, working over fries, hot oil vats.
At 3 different McDonald's.
I was never made aware that there were paid rest breaks. We were allowed to go to the toilet and we were allowed to have a drink of water, but we were never allowed to, go have 10 minutes to ourselves. They just said, oh, we don't really do that here.
This mega action now is just drawing a line in the sand. Enough's enough.
The union's action covers nearly 1,000 current and former McDonald's sites, saying more than 250,000 workers, almost 2% of Australia's workforce, are owed $250 million compensation. The union says it will be pushing for McDonald's to be penalised, which could also cost the fast food giant hundreds of millions of dollars. McDonald's says it'll be fighting the case. In a statement saying it believes its restaurants complied with applicable instruments, provided rest breaks to employees, we are very mindful of our obligations under applicable employment laws. The federal court action could take a year. Paul Kanak, 7 News.
Tech giant Google has been forced to pay $60 million in penalties in a major ruling handed down by the federal court. Robert Avadia joins us from the newsroom. Rob, Google has denied any wrongdoing.
Yeah, Ange, good evening. The internet giant says it did not breach the Australian Privacy Act, but it has admitted to the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission it failed to properly advise Android users about how their location data was being collected. Essentially, users could turn off location history, unaware another part of the platform could still track their movements. Now, that allowed Google to target some consumers with advertising, which is the basis of its revenue. Now, Google says it was just an oversight in its wording, that it was only live in 2017-18 and that it was quickly rectified. The $60 million fine is massive, but proportionate to the company's revenue, quite small. Google's annual income is roughly $200 billion. Angela.
OK, Robert Avadia, thank you. A decision on who will host the NRL Grand Final is a step closer tonight after further talks between league chiefs and the government. Peter V'landys and Andrew Abdo met with Sports Minister Alistair Henskins for roughly an hour. His office has told 7 News common ground is being found. The NRL is threatening to host the final in Queensland if the government does not fulfil a handshake deal to upgrade suburban grounds like Brookvale, Shark Park and Leichhardt. A final decision is expected within days.
All NRL teams will hold a minute's silence this round to remember the legendary player and coach Paul Green, who died suddenly yesterday. His former teammates and colleagues paying tribute, with mental health professionals urging men in particular to talk about their problems and seek help.
Paul Green embraced the game lauded for its brutality and hard hits. Today, the game didn't matter as much. His rugby league family pausing to remember one of the greats. Last night, a minute's silence. The first of this week's NRL round, not the last. Coaches sharing his family's pain.
It's been really sad and flat for Amanda and the kids and the family, and yeah, just sort of highlights the personal side of what we do and the need for support.
Green may have been small in stature but had a huge heart and now a lasting legacy. Townsville forever in his debt.
You just don't do that, by fluke, so you must know what you're doing.
He was destined for more greatness in negotiations to help Wayne Bennett coach the Dolphins.
I think he was keen to come, but we're just trying to work out a contract for him.
Away from football too.
We talked about doing the silly thing and buying a boat together.
Green played 95 games for Cronulla just days ago, sharing a drink with Sharks coach Craig Fitzgibbon.
Definitely cherished the hour or so after the game the other night, sharing his company again.
The game's most imposing figures fighting back tears.
He was good company. He was a good father. He's a good person.
Today calls for more awareness about mental ill health.
7 men today will commit suicide.
A problem shared is often a problem that's easier for people. So, whether that's a friend, a family member, or indeed Lifeline.
I just wish he knew that, all those people cared about him before he did what he did.
Tom Saker, 7 News.
There was a special welcome for a new visitor to Sydney Harbour today. The Navy's newest vessel, Reliant, has arrived, soon to be based in Brisbane to support any Australian assistance missions to Pacific Island nations. Joining her were 2 other support vessels, Sycamore and Mercator, used for aviation and navigation training.
Well, Sally Bowrey joins us now with the weather. Sal, good evening to you. The flooding rains have returned?
Yes, Michael, they have. It's not that the rain is actually that heavy. It's the fact it's falling on very saturated rivers across the inland parts, and that's what's triggered that spate of warnings that we have tonight. We've seen a bit of light rain just around Camden and also Gosford. Not so much in the city. Right now it is 15 degrees there. Today that cold front pushed through the northeast. It's currently just stretching from Bowrey through to around Bellambi. The heaviest falls around 24 millimetres at Carota Hill. That's near the Guida River. Tomorrow that cloud band and that rain will just push offshore, starting to edge away. In behind it though, we have a low that will track in across the southern belt of the state, and that will trigger rain through the southern and central ranges, around 5 to 10 millimetres widespread. It'll fall as snow as low as Oberon and Blaney into Sunday, as well as those temperatures start to dip in behind it. I'll tell you what all that means for Sydney this weekend with our full forecast a little later.
We'll look forward to it, Sal. Thank you. Well, police are looking for the owners of an olive oil shipment. Next on 7 News, why it's worth $26 million.
The tough new laws to keep Sydney's casinos under control.
The devastating wildfires forcing hundreds out of their homes.
How a freeze on bank withdrawals led to hostages being held at gunpoint.
And cutting the costs of care at home so you don't need to go to hospital. The Australian Energy Market Operator will be given sweeping powers to allow it to force companies to release gas in the event of supply shortages. Energy ministers from all states and territories agreed to the plan in Canberra today, which aims to prevent future power outages.
It's fair to say the challenges remain. The challenges remain this year, they remain next year, in the immediate future.
Ministers also agreed to speed up the rollout of renewable energy technology. There's some good news tonight for a mother who's been reunited with her 4 children after they were taken from a North Queensland property. An Amber Alert was issued after the siblings, aged between 3 and 8, were reported missing near Mackay around 11:30 yesterday morning. Police fearing they may be at significant risk. The children were found 22 hours later, unharmed. Where they've been is a mystery.
I understand she's very relieved, obviously, as any parent would be when their children have been returned.
Officers are still looking for the alleged abductor, 28-year-old Joshua Carter, but police say there's no threat to the greater community.
The cost of living crisis shows no signs of slowing down, with supermarket essentials continuing to hit household budgets hard. But that could be about to change, with independent chain IGA warned to hold off from hiking up prices and losing customers to their biggest competitors. It's hoped that could spark a much-needed supermarket showdown.
It's been an expensive year for shoppers as the cost of our supermarket staples soars.
There's still more to come in the months ahead.
But relief could be in sight. Metcash, the wholesaler of IGA and Foodland stores, has warned pushing prices even higher could push customers out the door.
We don't want to lose those market share gains that we've been able to make over the past few years.
But many of us are already changing the way we shop.
Australian households are tightening their belts. They're expecting ongoing price rises.
Using strategies like buying cheaper home brand labels, buying in bulk, buying more basic items.
Vegan or gluten-free things in particular, and they've always been expensive, but they're sort of extortionate now.
And just cutting back overall.
I pretty much shop to a list and menu plan, but now I'm just a lot stricter on myself.
Coles says it has cut the price of around 1 in 20 products since January, while rival Woolies reduced prices on around 300 essential items in May. But neither grocery giant would tell 7 News just how many products now have higher prices.
We're seeing customers even change where they shop. They're buying online if they think they can get a discount. They're certainly buying on special, but they're shifting to the discount retailers.
A shift that could be short-lived, with hopes growing that grocery prices could level out by Christmas.
We'd like to think that the worst is now behind us and pricing will start to stabilise in this next 6-month period.
Gemma Acton, 7 News.
Donald Trump is urging the FBI to release the warrant used in the raid on his Florida home, and stunningly, he might just get his way. It's been reported federal agents were looking for classified documents about nuclear weapons. Now there's speculation the former president has a rat in his inner circle.
Under pressure to explain an FBI raid at Donald Trump's home.
I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly.
The search at Mar-a-Lago was unprecedented, rattling Republicans and the former president. Just learned that agents went through the First Lady's closets and rummaged through her clothing and personal items, Trump wrote today. Surprisingly, left area in a relative mess. Wow. The Justice Department is reportedly investigating the removal and handling of classified documents from the White House when Trump left office. Tonight, the Washington Post reporting that included nuclear documents. Trump claims the government could have had whatever they wanted if we had it. They asked us to put an additional lock on a certain area. Done. Everything was fine, better than that of most previous presidents. And then, out of nowhere and with no warning, Mar-a-Lago was raided. Did a tip come from within?
Donald Trump probably does have a snitch in his midst.
If you know where the safe is and you know the documents are in 10 boxes in the basement, you are pretty close to the president.
The Justice Department is now taking the rare step of making public what was in the warrant and what was seized from Mar-a-Lago. A judge giving the Trump team 24 hours to respond if they want to keep those details private.
Why is it that it's only the Trump family and Donald Trump that seems to continue to have these witch hunts against him?
Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing.
In the United States, Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
Just 2 days after that Florida raid, an armed man has been shot dead trying to breach an FBI office. He was wearing body armour and was armed when he entered the visitor screening area of the Cincinnati office in Ohio. 42-year-old Ricky Schiffer fled and fired at pursuing police. He was eventually cornered and died in an exchange of gunfire. Officials say there's been an increase in threats against federal agents in the days following the search of Donald Trump's estate.
There's a new scam alert tonight, this one targeting parents. Fraudsters are texting mums and dads posing as their children and asking them for cash.
Image of the parents' credit card sent to them or money transferred to an account they nominate to be able to help them get by.
Police estimate the crooks have netted more than $2 million from that scam so far.
An apparently scorned lover has taken out a full-page ad in a Queensland newspaper slamming her ex as a filthy cheater, and she says she used his credit card to pay for it. The author, known only as Jenny, otherwise remains a mystery. The advertisement has gone viral, with the newspaper saying that it doesn't know who the so-called Steve is, other than he's clearly been very bad.
Well, staying out of hospital, ahead on 7 News, your healthcare options to make sure you can stay at home.
The world's largest fun run returns to Sydney. You might be surprised at who's taking part.
And the King of FM Breakfast shows off the newest member of his team.
Soon in sport, Nick Kyrgios takes a big step towards US Open glory, continuing his hot streak.
Bit of rain tonight and some showers tomorrow. I'll tell you when the wet weather will clear with Sydney's 7-day forecast soon.
Time now for a check on the markets with finance editor Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Michael. What has been a decent week for Aussie shares ended on a disappointing note, with the ASX 200 shedding 39 points to close at 7,033. The energy sector escaped the gloom pervading most of the market, with Woodside shares today's big winners. The Aussie dollar has continued to climb. It has now pushed above 71 US cents, while oil prices got a bump overnight. That was after the International Energy Agency upped its forecasts for energy demand this year. And for some customers at ANZ, NAB and the Commonwealth, life has just got more expensive, with the most recent 0.5% rate hike being added onto variable home loan rates from today. At Westpac, it's next Thursday. The lowest variable rates remain just under 4% for now. Michael.
Thank you, Gemma.
There's been an attempted break-in at the Russian embassy in Canberra by a kangaroo, which got its head through the gates, but not its hips. Tried again and eventually hopped off. Now there's speculation Skippy was trying to defect, but it's not a red kangaroo. Maybe he had a message in his diplomatic pouch. It made a quick getaway uninjured, we're happy to say. The world's largest fun run returns to Sydney this Sunday. More than 60,000 people will run, jog, or some may walk from Hyde Park through the eastern suburbs to Bondi Beach. Our very own Mark Ferguson will be taking part, raising money for the charity Rio's Legacy to build a dedicated facility in our west for terminally ill children. It's also the first time the event will be held for real since 2019.
I think bringing people back together is really important after 2 really difficult years with COVID.
A number of roads around the CBD and eastern suburbs will be closed. Be sure to check signs in your local area. If you're looking to get involved, there is still time. Registrations close at 7 a.m. on Sunday. And if you'd like to support Mark's Run, please head to our website for details, 7news.com.au. All the funds go directly to Rio's Legacy charity. Tonight is party night at Taronga Zoo, with 5 lion cubs celebrating their first birthday. They're all from the 1 litre, all born on this day last year, and now they are ready to roar.
On the grass plains of Mossman, a pride of 7 African lions seems a long way from home. But born at Taronga Zoo, today 5 cubs mark their first birthdays.
I think they're majestic, they're so beautiful.
Their roaring is a little bit different from what you'd think it is.
We all thought it was like, raw, you know, but then it turns out to be more like, whoa.
Yeah. You know. Born during the pandemic on August 12, 2021, staff launched Cub Cam, inviting members of the public into the world of Kari, Lazuka, Ayana, Malika and Zuri. Their arrival not as grand as the movies, but just as moving.
We're a little bit possessive over them because we've been able to watch them grow up like that.
We just thought it was absolutely beautiful when she had the 5 cubs, and we've come along here from time to time to see them, and it's beautiful.
Born at just 1 kilogram, the boys are now much heavier, at 90 kilos each, the girls 70 kilos.
Their whole entire diet is meat. They get things like kangaroo, beef, their beef. I would even want to eat their beef. It's amazing.
Staff here hope the breeding program will go some way towards helping a population in decline, with just 20,000 lions left in the wild. Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
Tough new casino laws have now passed through the state parliament, keeping Sydney's gambling duopoly under control. At the core of the new laws, a new independent regulator to oversee the Star and Crown's operations starting from next month. Crown's high roller gaming only opened this week under strict conditions. Crown previously had been found unfit to hold a licence, but new owners and new management changed that. While findings from a review into the Star are expected within weeks, but like Crown, it's cleaned house with all new management. The new regulations centre on serious concerns about money laundering and criminal activity. That'll be the focus of the new commission. There'll be unprecedented powers and strong action against operators and individuals engaging in misconduct. The kicker, it's the casinos themselves who will be forced to fund the very commission looking over them. Self-funded scrutiny to stop dirty money being washed here and considerably more accountability for the casino operators.
Radio host Carl Sandilands has shown off his baby son, Otto. Just one day after the birth of his first child, Carl was keen to introduce him to co-host Jackie O.
Look at him.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Baby Otto, Mum Tegan and Dad Kyle are all said to be doing well, and congratulations from all of us at 7 News. Coming up shortly on 7 News, cutting the costs of care at home to avoid hospital, how to apply for nursing visits, physio, rehab, medicine, taxis and meals. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News.
But now Michelle Bishop is here with sport. Michelle, good evening to you. No matter what went on last night, the Panthers say they're not panicking after another loss.
Putting on a very brave face, I think, Michael. They were shut out by the Storm's lethal defence and now have even more concerns on the injury front as we edge closer to the finals. Details next. Plus, Canterbury under the pump early against the Warriors in New Zealand. And Cam Smith back on the greens with some real magic, but his playing future remains up in the air.
This Sport Report brought to you by Sportsbet Same Game Multi.
Good evening. The Bulldogs are facing a big challenge against the Warriors tonight. Both teams held a minute's silence before kick-off to remember the late Paul Green. But the home team jumped out of the blocks with 2 early tries. Former Dog Dallin Watene-Zelezniak scoring a length of the field stunner.
And Dallin Watene-Zelezniak goes almost the length of the field.
The locals celebrated Daniel Ricciardo's style with a shoey. The Warriors lead 18 points to 6 near the break. James Tedesco's glittering career reaches a new milestone tomorrow, playing his 200th NRL game. But the Roosters' celebrations have been restrained as they prepare to face the Cowboys, the late Paul Green's former club. Trent Robinson wanted to give his players time to process the loss of a former club champion.
We spoke about it this morning, so we had a couple of photos up there of Greenie and his time here in both his roles, and just that you need sometimes to reach out.
Green was player number 998 for the Roosters. He was one of Robbo's assistants when the Chooks won the premiership in 2013, but it was his time at the Cowboys that defined his career.
To win the first in a place is difficult. It's one of the most memorable grand finals in the history of our game.
As a club and as a group, we'll just have to put our arms around each other, make sure that we keep an eye out.
The Cowboys face the Roosters tomorrow at the SCG, game number 200 for James Tedesco.
He's pushed the limits on all of those 200 games, and he's got a lot of petrol left in the tank.
The Panthers are hardly panicking, sitting well clear at the top of the table, despite being kept scoreless for the first time in 7 years by the Storm last night.
Some good lessons in there tonight for us.
We're just sort of hanging on or hanging around the top 4 at the moment.
Off the back of last week's hat-trick, Cameron Munster again started fullback, but it was Brandon Smith's injection off the bench that stole the show in the 16-0 win.
Smith with a step. He's going to score.
Penrith's injury toll continues to climb. Liam Martin with a serious knee problem and Moses Leota a calf complaint. Cronulla coach Craig Fitzgibbon says Paul Green's sudden death reminds us all that rugby league is just a game. Sharks players and staff held a tribute for Green this morning before flying up to Tamworth for tomorrow's clash with the West Tigers.
Small in stature but huge at heart. You need to stop and take a bit of perspective first. It's not this is like it's life. It's not It's bigger than a game.
And I think what we do in rugby league so well is we care about each other and we rally around each other.
Green won the Rothmans medal with the Sharks back in 1995. For the first time this season, James O'Connor will start for the Wallabies. The 63-cap veteran has been called in to replace the injured Quade Cooper for the second Rugby Championships clash against Argentina.
He's an important voice in amongst that backline, so he's prepared really well. He's really excited to get a crack.
The Wallabies are also missing captain Michael Hooper. The Swans are preparing for their biggest game of the year so far against Collingwood on Sunday. Fresh off champion Josh Kennedy's retirement, Sydney compressed their claim for a top 4 place against the Magpies, who are on an 11-game winning streak.
Probably bar the final last year, this has probably got the most weight to it. You don't stumble over 11 wins in a row, so they're doing lots right.
The match is live on 7 Mate. Nick Kyrgios's golden run of form has given him a seeding for the US Open, but it wasn't all smooth sailing at the Canadian Open warm-up tournament. Kyrgios repeatedly shouted at his box late in the 4th round clash with compatriot Alex de Minaur. It didn't stop the Wimbledon finalists from completing the straight sets win in just over an hour.
Today was really hard mentally for me to go out here and play Alex. We're such good friends, and he's been having such a good career so far and carrying the Australian flag for so long.
Kyrgios has won 15 of his last 16 singles matches. Cam Smith says he's ready to face the critics again, hinting he's signed with the Saudi-backed Live Golf Series. The British Open champion carded an opening round 3 under par 67 at the FedEx Cup playoffs in Memphis, including this spectacular eagle on the 13th.
Oh! You gotta be kidding me.
World number 1 Scotty Scheffler was happy to high-five Smith then, but made his feelings known about the rebel Aussie earlier, walking across his line as he was preparing to putt. Adam Scott is the best-placed Australian at 5 under, 3 shots off the pace. Jack Rodwell is expecting plenty of barbs to be thrown his way when he faces the Wanderers for the very first time. The former Manchester City and England midfielder today joining arch-rivals Sydney FC on a 2-year deal.
It's a rich history, they've won so many things, and I've seen an opportunity here to get this club back to winning ways.
Sky Blues legend Milos Ninkovic headed the other way to Western Sydney last month. Certainly a big no-no walking across the line in golf there, but
Tis indeed.
Cam Smith, his future, how exciting. I think he's already
Tis
signed.
indeed. And the Penrith fans know that when they're at full speed, which they will be soon, they are lethal.
They are still at under strength, much for sure.
OK, thanks so much. Good to have you on the desk. Thanks for the show. As COVID infections put our hospitals and aged care under strain, more and more people are choosing home care.
From doctors' checkups to rehab, even a hand with the cooking. Help has never been more accessible, easier and cheaper.
89-year-old Richard Leeson wants to stay in his home as long as possible. He had a stroke 5 years ago and needs a hand.
Peeling stuff is a terrible job, particularly with my impaired left hand.
Made possible through the Commonwealth subsidised Home Care Packages program. It works with support providers like 5 Good Friends.
It takes so much pressure off of not only the people that we support, but their families.
Services include nursing, physical therapies and at-home doctor treatments, as well as specialised taxi services and even options for social outings or visits to stay connected. There is a daily fee of around $11, as well as additional charges set by the provider. The application is completed online. 275,000 home care packages will be available to Australian seniors by the end of the year. Each application can take anywhere between 3 and 6 months to assess. There are also options through private health. Australian Unity offers physical therapies, personal care, rehab, as well as telehealth. Bupa includes chemotherapy, dialysis and aged care support.
About 82% of the health insurance providers on our panel have healthcare at home in some way, shape or form.
It's a quality of life, making sure you live your life as comfortably as you possibly can.
Georgia Terry, 7 News.
Well, Sally's back now with the weather, and Sal, the rain's heading our way.
Yes, Michael, they are. Sydney's in for a bit of a wet night. I'll tell you if it'll clear in time for the weekend, though, with the full forecast next.
This weather report brought to you by Sportsbet Same Game Multi.
Tonight's 7 News headlines: an investigation into workplace culture at State Parliament has revealed bullying, intimidation and sexual harassment.
And Sydney commuters are set to enjoy weeks of free travel right across the rail network starting from tomorrow.
Now here's Sally with Sydney's weather.
Thank you very much, Michael. We've got a bit of rain just pushing through the northeast of the state at the moment. Hasn't quite reached Sydney yet, though. Today in the city, we reached a top of 16 degrees. Currently, it's sitting on 14. Bit of rain expected overnight tonight, but it won't be too heavy. Very little difference in terms of the coolest part of the day and the warmest today across the Sydney Basin area. In terms of temperatures, we reached tops of 18 degrees at Richmond, 20 degrees at Penrith and 12 degrees at Katoomba. Now, we've got two main features driving our weather at the moment. The first is that cloud band that has just been sitting through, well, really it stretches from the Northern Territory right down to parts of Tasmania, but it is just lying through that northeastern corner of our state, pretty much from Sydney to Lightning Ridge, that cloud band. That has triggered some light rain across parts of the state today. It'll continue just to track offshore into tomorrow, but then as you can see, we've got a low just sweeping in across the southern half behind it. That'll trigger widespread around 5 to 10 millimetres through the central and southern ranges, and also some fairly cool weather in behind it as well. Around the capital cities for tomorrow, we can expect tops of 21 degrees in Brisbane, rain at times there, 14 degrees for Canberra, 15 into Adelaide. On the west coast, a few showers are due into Perth tomorrow with a top of 19 degrees. Let's have a closer look at our state though. Tomorrow, that low will start to edge through the southwestern parts. There it is right down the bottom of the screen. It'll move across, triggering light rain as it just sweeps through. Cold enough to fall as snow through Oberon and Blaney. That'll be more into Saturday night, Sunday morning, while those showers will just continue in the wake of that cloud band along the coast. 20 degrees at Newcastle, a little bit of wet weather, 16 for Batemans Bay. Wind chill will also be a factor thanks to those gusty westerly winds. Looking ahead for the metro area, we can expect tops of 20 degrees for most with a shower or two, 1 to 3 millimetres in the gauges. A quick check of the water for tomorrow, and it looks like conditions will be northerly winds with swell around a metre. A low of 10 degrees in the city tonight, rain at times, 19 degrees the story tomorrow with a shower or two. Looks like the wet weather should ease on Sunday with pretty much clear skies for the rest of the week, guys.
Like the sound of that. OK, thanks so much, Sal. That is 7 News for this Friday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening.
Sunrise starts from 7 tomorrow from all the 7 News team. Thanks for your company. Have a great Friday night.
Good night.